Welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate the basic ways of recording a tutorial video or just recording any sort of video in OBS. The basic OBS settings that are required to record a video. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you'd really want to do is download a software called OBS Studio. You can go to any browser and type in OBS Studio. And the first result that comes up in Google will be OBS Studio. Click on OBS Studio and you can actually download the version for your operating system. Over here I'm using Windows, so I've already downloaded and installed OBS on Windows. Once you've actually gone ahead and installed Windows or installed OBS on Windows, go ahead and close that browser and we can go ahead and launch OBS. Now here we go. This is the basic user interface for OBS once you install it. OBS Studio is a software. It's open source and it's free, available to download. It allows you to record videos and also live stream to different platforms such as YouTube, Twitch, or Kick. But in this video, I'm not going to discuss live streaming. I'm actually going to discuss the basic settings for recording videos. So the first thing you want to do, once you actually have it opened, is you want to actually set it up. So you want to go to settings. Let's go to settings first. Appearance is absolutely fine. You can actually select the style that you want. I like to stay with the default, which is perfectly fine. In general, select your language of choice. You've got a few languages over there. Now, what you really want to do is hide OBS window from screen capture, but we can actually do that at a later stage once we actually set it up. Now, I like to keep the updates on default and make sure that automatically check for updates is checked up. You can really keep most things on default in the general tab because we're not going to be doing anything really complicated. We're essentially just using OBS to record videos. Now the main sections that we do want to go to is the output section. Click on output. Now in output mode, you've got a simple and an advanced mode. I do recommend using the advanced mode because it does give you a few more options. Click on advanced mode. Now once you're in advanced mode, click on the recording tab, which is the second tab next to streaming. Now in recording, stick to the type as standard. The recording path. Now you can actually select a path. So what you can do is go to your C drive, go to your computer, and you can actually create a new folder. And I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to go to new folder. I'm going to say OBS recordings. And I'm going to call it test because this is the test that I'm going to be deleting this folder after this video. But there we go. OBS recordings test is my folder that I've created. And this is just created in your computer in C drive. And you can close that out. Once you've done that, for your recording path, you can actually browse to that folder. So I'm going to browse to that folder I just created. I'm going to go to my computer, C drive, and I'm going to find OBS recording test. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to click on select folder. Now once I've done that, as you can see, it has populated the OBS recordings test folder in my recording path. So all my recordings will actually go to this folder. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to select a recording format. Now I do like to keep it at .mkv as my format. The reason I'm selecting .mkv is that if the file does, or the recording does get corrupted in between, you can still recover some of that footage. There are a few other options. There are quite a few options in the latest version of OBS. The most common one is .mp4. You can actually record to .mp4, but it does give you a warning, letting you know that recordings cannot be paused. If the recording is, of course, that's a different setup, but it does tell you that recording saved to MP4 MOV will be unrecoverable if the file cannot be finalized. So that is an issue. So I like to actually record in the .mkv format, which actually does the job, and I can actually re-encode when I'm editing my video in a system such as DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro or whatever you're actually using. The next option is called Video Encoder. Now this is a very important option, and when you drop it down, you have a few options here, and this really depends on the computer you're using. Now I'm using an AMD computer, so I have AMD options. If you're using an Intel computer, you would have the Intel options. Now in an AMD computer, the two options I have is to record as an H.264 encoded file or an H.265 encoded file. I usually like to go with the H.265 encoded file because it does give you a better quality video for a lower bitrate. So go with the H.265 is recommended. So that's what I'm going to select. Audio encoder, we can keep it as AAC, which is FFmpeg AAC. There are a few other options over here. You can select FFmpeg Opus, which is supposed to be newer and higher quality, but for the purpose of this recording, I'm going to keep it as AAC. I've heard that FFmpeg Opus, because it's new, it can still have some bugs. So we're going to stick with FFmpeg AAC. Okay. Now, audio tracks that you want to record. OBS by default gives you 6 audio tracks. But in this case, I'm only using my first audio track, and that's why I'm going to keep one selected, and you can keep the rest of them unselected. Now, I do reach the main part where we do want to set the quality of our recording, which is the encoder settings. Now, the encoder settings currently, if you drop it down, there are quite a few encoder settings. Now the two that I recommend you use, the first one is CBR, which is constant bitrate. This is going to give you a constant bitrate of recording while you're actually doing it, regardless of what you actually have on the screen. The opposite of constant bitrate is variable bitrate. Now variable bitrate will change the bitrate or vary it based on the amount of information that is on the screen. So if you just have a basic screen capture, the bitrate that it will use will be a lot lower compared to if you have a few cameras on screen. So for video recording, the most useful thing is constant bitrate. So that's the one I'm actually going to use. So I'm going to select constant bitrate. Now, the default bitrate it does give you is 2500 kbps, which is actually very low for recording videos. If I want to record a high quality video for something like YouTube or any of the other social media platforms, I definitely do want to have a higher bitrate. 2500 is used usually for live streaming. When you're trying to live stream something at 720p, that's when you would use a bitrate such as 2500 to 5000. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and change my bitrate to 20,000 kbps. Now keyframe intervals, I'm going to change this from 0 to 2 because that's a standard that's required for a lot of the platforms online. We'll change that to 2. Now preset, you have a few options. You've got quality, you've got balance, and you've got speed. I like to stick to quality when I am recording. And that's really all that you require for the encoder settings. Don't forget to hit apply to make sure that all these settings actually get applied. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the next thing I'm actually going to do is go to audio. Now, usually when you download OBS, your desktop audio will be enabled. It'll be set to default. And you may have a few others set to default as well. I like to actually disable all of these audio devices, and I'll explain further when we go down through this video why I'm actually disabling all of them. But I like to actually disable all of them right here. Now, once I've done that, that's really all you need for a basic recording. I'm going to click apply. The next tab I'm actually going to go to, which is very, very important, is video. Now, video is where you do select your output canvas size. Now, I like to record my videos at 1080p, which is basically a canvas resolution of 1920 by 1080. Now in this case, as you can see, the base canvas is already set for us as 1920 by 1080 at an aspect ratio of 16 by 9, which is essentially a 1080p video. Now the output, I like to go ahead and match it to my canvas, which is 1080p. And my frame rate, now this is highly dependent on what your content really is. If you are recording gaming content that has a lot of motion, you definitely want to go with 60 frames per second. In my case, I'm recording tutorial videos that usually have a camera as a webcam and you've got a screen share with some kind of text, and I like to go with 30 frames. So I'm going to go ahead and select 30 FPS. Once I've done that, I'm going to click on apply. And all these settings have actually been saved. That's really it in the settings section, and I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Right. Now we still have a blank canvas. The next thing we want to do is add a few scenes and sources. This will allow us to capture our OBS settings. Right? Okay. So now what we want to do, when we are recording, we want to go ahead and create a few scenes. Now, by default, it does create and automatically creates a scene for us. I'm going to go ahead and right click and I'm going to rename the scene. And I'm going to go ahead and call it Screen 1. And this scene is called Screen 1. This is going to capture my first screen, which I've got two displays over here. It's going to capture my first display. Now that's great. I've got a source, I've got a scene called Scene 1, but I do need to give the scene some sources. Sources are the main sources that OBS is going to capture. And you can have different scenes with different sources and switch between the scenes while you're actually doing the recording. So for Scene 1, which I've called as Screen 1, I'm going to go ahead and add my first source. And what I want to do is I want to capture my display. So I'm going to select Display Capture. So the way I've actually done that is in Sources, click on the plus button to add a source. Once I've done that, I can select the type of source that I want to capture. So in my case, I want to capture my first screen of my display. And I'm going to go ahead and select Display Capture. And I'm going to call, you can actually name this source, and I'm going to call it Screen 1. Press OK. Great. So now there are a few options over here. What's my capture method? I'm going to actually select automatic just to be safe. There are a few other methods. I haven't actually used them. I do stick to automatic. So that's what I'm going to select. Now the display. Now there are a few options here. I do have two displays, so it does actually register that I've got my primary display, and that is the Dell display that I'm using here, and shows up. It's a 1080p monitor, so I can capture that. Or I can select my second display, which is essentially the same type of display, but in this case I'm going to capture my primary monitor. And because I'm doing tutorial videos, I'm going to keep capture cursor selected. If you are capturing games and you don't want your mouse cursor to be captured as well in the recording, you can unselect that one. But for this tutorial video, I'm going to keep it selected. Great. And now I'm going to click on OK. Right. Now you will see this mirrored image because I am running OBS as you can see on my screen 1. So it will give you this mirror image because it's actually capturing itself. Now, to get rid of this, you can actually go to settings and you can actually say hide OBS. And that'll actually go ahead and hide OBS from being captured. As you can see, now I'm just capturing my monitor. But we're going to go back and unhide OBS because we're doing a tutorial on OBS settings. So I do want to show you the actual OBS system. Okay, that's great. So now what I've done so far, I've got a scene which is called scene 1. And I'm going to rename that so I don't make any spelling mistakes right over here. I'm going to call this scene 1. Great. And I've got a source which is called screen 1 that I'm capturing right here. Okay. So that's all well and good, but we definitely do want to capture audio as well because we want to record our microphone. So usually you should have some sort of microphone connected to your computer. Something even basic like a USB microphone, or even some of the webcams that you use will have a microphone. So if you're using a webcam, you could use the inbuilt microphone on the webcam. But I do recommend using an external microphone that will give you better quality. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's actually create another source and add another source to scene 1 just for the microphone. Okay, great. So the next thing I'm going to do, the same thing again, I'm going to go and add another source. So I'll click on that. And now we want to capture a microphone. So OBS makes it very, very easy because as you can see, it gives you a whole bunch of icons on the left-hand side. Now, you've got audio input capture and audio output capture. Now, I want to capture my input because that's a microphone. That's an input signal going into OBS. So I'm actually going to select audio input capture. And I'm going to name this as mic. If you have multiple mics, you can name them as mic 1 or mic 2. I'm just going to keep it very, very simple, and I'm going to call it mic. And I'm say OK. Now, once I do that, it does open up a properties window where it does allow me to select my device. So I'm going to go ahead and select my microphone, which is my headset. So I'm actually using a headset microphone right now to record this, and I'm going to go ahead and select headset microphone, and I'm going to be OK. That's great. Now, as you can see, I do have a microphone signal coming through as I speak. Excellent. So now I have my display and I have my microphone. Usually, I like to have my microphone sources underneath display. So I'll select microphone and I'll drop it down using these arrow keys right here, and I'll just bring it underneath. So this is really the most basic way to record a screen. Now, I want to create, since I've got 2 screens connected to my computer, I want to do the same thing to capture my second screen. So there are a couple of ways to do this. There's a lazy way and there's an unlazy way. I'm going to actually do the unlazy way. The lazy way is you can actually click on scene, right click, and say duplicate. Now that is a smart way of doing it, but I'm actually going to show you the long way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to scenes. I'm going to press add scene. I'm going to call this scene 2, which is already actually called. I'm just going to keep it uniform and not leave a space. Select scene 2. Now in scene 2, the goal is to capture our second monitor because I'm using 2 monitors here. Very similar process. I'm going to go back to add a source. And we'll click on add a source. And we want to do the same thing. We want to go to display capture. I'll do that and I'll call it screen 2. Click on OK. Once again, we're at the properties screen for screen 2. Over here, I'm not going to select my primary monitor. I'm going to select my secondary monitor, which is the second one in the dropdown. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to continue capturing cursor because that's what I want. But as I mentioned before, if you're capturing a game, you don't want that cursor to be on screen, can be distracting. You can actually turn that off. But in this case, I'm going to keep it on. And I'm going to click on OK. Great. And now the next thing I do want to do is capture my microphone again. Now, here's when things change a little bit. I'm going to go back and do the same thing. I'm going to add a source. And I'm going to select an audio input capture again. And when I do that, as you can see, I've got the options of creating a new one, or I've got the option of adding an existing source. Now we've already created a source called microphone or mic. I'm actually going to select an existing source called mic. I'm going to select it, keep make source visible, keep that checked, and I'm going to press OK. Now, as you can see, I've got the same source in both my scenes, and I've got the audio coming through. However, the reason I did not create a new source is because I had already created a source before, and to save resources, the more sources you have, OBS and your computer needs to work harder to keep up with your recordings. So in order to save your CPU, we definitely want to use sources that we've already created. Now in scene 2, here again, I have mic above my screen 2. I like to keep my audio sources below my video sources. So I'm going to go back to these arrow keys. I'm going to click down. Great. So now I've got two scenes. I've got my scene 1, which is my screen 1 with my audio source. And I've got scene 2 here again, which is my screen 2 with my audio source. Excellent. So now we have a basic recording setup where I can capture my screens. Now let's say that you want to take it a step further or a few steps further, and you want to capture a webcam. You have a webcam and you do want to show your face on YouTube or Twitch, which definitely does help. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create another scene. And that scene is going to be a webcam scene. So I'm going to just go ahead and create a new scene, and I'm going to call this scene 3. And I can just label it as webcam. Okay. Now we've got another scene called webcam. And what I'm going to go ahead and do, go back to doing the same thing, click on add a source. And when I click on add a source, previously we actually selected display capture because we were actually capturing a display. Now this time we want to capture a webcam. So webcam is essentially a video capture device. So in sources, you've got this option where you've got a picture of a camera, and it's called a video capture device. Now I do have a webcam connected to this computer, so I'm going to go ahead and select video capture device. I'm going to call it webcam, and I'm going to make source visible, and I'm going to press OK. Now I do have a few options here. Select your webcam. Usually the webcam I'm going to select is the USB camera webcam, and I'm going to select that one right there. And there you see, there's my webcam. Great. And I'm going to go scroll down. Now you can leave everything on default, as you can see right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few adjustments just to make sure that nothing changes, because if my default settings do change, it is going to change over here as well. So resolution FPS type, I'm going to drop that down, and I'm going to select custom. Now when you do select custom, your image will disappear. Don't worry about it at all. We're still setting it up. So go ahead and select custom, and then the next tab is resolution. Go ahead and drop that down. And this is really be dependent on your webcam. Now this will show you all the resolutions that are available for that webcam. Now my resolution, I've got the highest, which is 1080p, that's available, which is 1920 by 1080. I'm going to go ahead and select that one. And when I do, my webcam shows up again, which is great, which is exactly what I want. Scroll further down. You can say keep the FPS as matched output, or you can select the highest FPS. I'm just going to say match the output FPS of my webcam. The video format, you can keep this on any and it will automatically select your video format. This webcam is an MJPEG webcam, so you can select MJPEG, but that's the only option. I'm just going to keep it on any. I'm going to keep the color space on default and color range on default just for the simplicity of this video. And I'm going to go ahead and there's something that you do want to do. You do want to check mark use hardware decoding when available. So if your computer does have a hardware decoder, which usually they do, I'm going to go ahead and check that. You're going to get a bit of a better quality and your CPU is going to be used a lot less. And after that, you can keep the rest as default, capture audio only, and that's absolutely fine, and press OK. Great. So now, as you can see, I've got a webcam source and the audio. The webcam does have an inbuilt microphone, so by default it captures my audio. But I don't really want to use that microphone. I do want to still continue to use my other microphone sources that I've already created. So I'm going to go back to scene 3 webcam scene, and I'm going to go ahead and mute this audio. And I'm going to bring the entire fader down. So that's just avoids any distraction. And I'm going to go ahead and click my source again. And this time I'm going to go back to audio input capture because I want to enter that microphone again. I'm going to go ahead and select add existing and add the same microphone that we created before. Great. Go ahead and do that. There we go. We've got the microphone and we've got our microphone signal over here. Now, once again, I'm going to go ahead and bring my audio sources underneath my video sources. Perfect. So now we've got 3 scenes. We've got scene 1, which is our display 1. We've got scene 2, which is our display 2. And we've got a webcam capture. Now, I'm going to go and take a few steps forward. And I'm going to say, I want to be able to display my webcam while I'm recording. Great, so that's really, really useful when you want to show your webcam while you're actually displaying your screen. So maybe a webcam small in the middle on the right hand side. Great, you can go ahead and do that. So in this case, I'm going to actually create a webcam for when I'm displaying scene 1 and scene 2, I'm going to display my webcam as well at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the simplicity of this video, for scene 1, I'm going to right click on scene 1 and I'm going to say duplicate. And it's going to actually create a default name for us. It's going to say add scene. I'm going to bring this a little higher up there. It's going to say add scene and it's going to say scene 1 2, which is essentially a duplicate of scene 1. But I'm going to go ahead and call this scene 1 with webcam. Right? And I'm going to press OK. Now, what it's actually gone ahead and done, it's created a new scene, which is a duplicate of scene 1, so it's identical at the moment. And I've just labeled it as scene 1 with webcam. So essentially, it is identical to this scene because we just did a duplicate. The only difference is that the name of the scene is changed because I just changed it. Now, we do want to add a webcam to the scene because that's the goal. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on add a source. Now we could go ahead and add the webcam source again, but I'm going to do things a little bit differently over here just to make things easier and more uniform. So as you can see, we already created scene 3, which is a webcam scene. And as you can see, it has my webcam there. So I'm actually going to go back to scene 1 with webcam. And rather than adding another video capture device and adding a third webcam, which will make my CPU and computer work a lot harder because I'm adding another source, I'm going to go ahead and select a scene because in OBS you can actually add a scene as a source within a scene. So it's called scene within a scene. And I'm going to go ahead and select a scene. When I do that, it actually gives me a whole bunch of all the scenes that I've created. So these are my scenes. And when I've gone ahead to add a scene within my scene, it's brought up all these scenes. So we already do have a webcam scene right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and select my webcam scene. And I'm going to press OK. So as you can see, it's added my webcam as part of scene 1 with webcams. But now, of course, I do want to be able to display my screen as well as my webcam. So all I'm going to do for this, I'm going to go ahead and go right to the top left-hand corner of my webcam, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it down. Just drag it down with your mouse, and there you go. I've got a little webcam right on the corner, so you can see my webcam, and you can also see the screen capture. Great. So I'm going to do the same thing for scene 2, because I want my webcam to be in scene 1, and I'm going to create another scene for scene 2 where I've got my display and I've got my webcam there as well. Right, great. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. We go back to scene 2, and there are a lot of ways to do this, guys, but I'm going to show you one way to do it. Go back to scene 2, right click and duplicate scene 2. I'm going to change the name again to scene 2 with webcam. I'm going to press OK. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my sources for the scene 2 with webcam. Go ahead and select a scene, just like I did before. Scroll down and select my scene 1 with webcam. Oh, nope. I'm going to select scene 3 webcam. That's the one I want, because that was my original webcam scene. I'm going to press OK. Once again, we've got the webcam. I'm going to click on webcam and I'm going to drop it. Now, I can actually go ahead and resize it just like I did before, but if I do resize it, and as you can see now, when I click on both of these, there's discrepancy because my scene 1 has a webcam of a different size, and if I select scene 2 with webcam, it has a webcam of a different size. So if I want things to be uniform, I'm going to go ahead and select scene 1 with webcam. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay, great. So I've got scene 1 with webcam, and I'm going to go ahead and select my webcam scene, my webcam source rather, right click on it. When I right click on it, it opens up this menu. I'm going to go and find transform, and I'm going to say copy transform. You can also use the shortcut key that it tells you, which is Control-Shift-C, but I'd rather just go ahead and show you exactly where the option is. So that's copy transform, click on it. So now I've copied the transform, I've copied the settings of this webcam, the placement, and the size. And we're going to go ahead and select scene 2 with webcam. Once again, click on my webcam scene, webcam source, right click, find transform, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that transform right there. Now, as you can see, when I pasted it, it made the size the same as my other scene. So now my webcam size remains the same, but I can switch between my two scenes. Now, just for uniformity, I like to keep things a bit structured. So I'll go ahead and select scene 2, use my arrow keys within the scene, and just bring it up. So now I've got scene 1, scene 2, without the webcam and just a screen capture. And then I've got scene 1 with the webcam and scene 2 with the webcam. And this is my overall webcam scene, which is great. So I've got all three. I can switch between the rest. Excellent. I'm going to go back to scene 1. Okay, great. So that is the basics of recording. Now let's go ahead and do a last step. The last step in this is I want to actually, now as you can see, my webcam scene, this is great, but it is actually square, and I do want to make a few changes to this. Now, I wanted a rounded webcam, and I do want it, at the moment my webcam is pointing to this way right here. Now I do want to point it so I'm looking at the actual screen. So let's go ahead and do that. That's really, really simple. What we want to do is go ahead, select scene 1, select my webcam scene, right click on the webcam scene, find transform again, and I want to flip this horizontally. So when I select flip horizontally, it's going to go ahead and show it to me here. So I can actually, it looks like now that I'm actually doing a tutorial video and I'm pointing towards my actual screen. And I'm going to do the same. And well, I don't really have to do the same. I'm going to go back to scene 1. I'm going to right click on my webcam scene and I'm going to go transform and I'm going to copy transform again. Go back to scene 2 with webcam. Right click on this, go back to transform and paste transform and it will do the same. Right, okay, so that's perfect. Now let's actually make this webcam circular. Because that's quite interesting. You see these YouTube videos with this circular vision. So how did they actually get that effect? Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go back to scene 1 with webcam. Right, now what you can do is go ahead and download any sort of circular image. So you go to Google and you can say circular mask image, and here you go. You can download one of these image for OBS. You do a quick search. Let's go ahead and do that. Use an image mask in OBS. Let's see what this actually tells us. Great, so it's got this little bit of an image, so you can actually find any of these images right online. So you can download any of those images. So we had one just earlier, which was this one right here. You can actually go ahead and download this one. I've already downloaded one, so I'm just gonna stick to what I've got, but go ahead if you don't have one of these images, and this is called an image mask, you can actually go ahead and download these. Or you can save them to your computer. Right, so I've actually got one right here. I'm actually gonna go ahead and find my image mask. Give me a quick moment. Yep, there we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my OBS, go back to scene, my actual webcam scene for my scene 1 with webcam, right click, and I'm gonna click on filters this time. Click on filters. I'm gonna click the plus button. And I should have a mask option right here. Image mask and blend. I'm going to go ahead and select the image mask and blend filter. I'm going to click OK. And at the moment it's still rectangular. It's still a 16:9 image. But now the image that you actually downloaded, you can go ahead and browse to that image. And I do recall that I have that image downloaded somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and try to find that. OBS filters, that's what I've saved it. You want to save it right over here. You can actually create any folder and save it there. And there you go. I've got my circular filter with my mask. That's the one I've downloaded. I'm going to open that one up. Now what it's actually done is it's gone ahead and created a circle image from there. Now there are a few things that you can do. You can decrease the opacity. Now it's completely dark. And you can change the opacity. I'm going to keep it fully bright. You can select the colors. This is dependent on the mask. Now, as you can see, my mask is white. So that's the reason why the color is defaulted at white. And you can leave it just for basic editing. You can just leave it at that color. And then I'll press close. Now, as you can see, my webcam video is circular, and now I can place it wherever I really want to. I can place it up here while I'm doing a training. That makes it a bit more interesting. And now if I go back to my scene 2, it has actually changed it. It is applied because I've actually applied it to the scene. So once again, I've decided to place my webcam right up here for this tutorial in OBS. Once again, I'm going to right click on the scene. I'm going to go to transform, copy transform, go back to scene 2, and I'm going to go back to my webcam scene, and I'm going to go to transform and paste the transform, and there you go, brings it up there. So those are the basics, the way I actually set it up for recording. So now, just to recap, scene 1 without a webcam, but I've just got my audio source. Scene 2, once again, capturing my secondary monitor with my audio source. Then I've got my scene with my webcam, and then there you go, I've got my main webcam. Now, here's the challenging part. This is really the last part, is that I've got my webcam over here. It's made it circular. So we can go ahead and create a new scene if you want to, capture another webcam, and you'll fix that. But there we go. So if you have any questions or comments, guys, please feel free to place them in the comments section of this video. Like, share, subscribe, that really helps my channel. And I really appreciate your time in watching this video. Thank you and happy recording.